5 Navy planes took off on a clear December afternoon. They never came back, and neither did the planes sent to find them. December 5th, 1945, Naval Air Station, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. The war was over. The boys were home. And for 14 young American aviators, this was supposed to be just another day at the office, a routine training exercise, a few hours in the air, and then dinner. Flight 19 consisted of 5 TBM Avenger torpedo bombers, 14 men total. Their mission was simple: fly east over the Atlantic, drop practice bombs on a target near Bimini, turn north, then loop back west to Fort Lauderdale. Pilots called it the Triangle route. They'd done it dozens of times. It was as routine as it got. Flight leader Lieutenant Charles Taylor was an experienced aviator with over 2,500 hours of flight time. He was confident, decorated, respected. His 4 student crews were green but capable. There was no reason, not a single one, to expect anything other than a smooth afternoon flight. They were wheels up at 2:10 in the afternoon. By 3:45, the first distress call crackled through the radio at Fort Lauderdale's control tower. It was Taylor's voice, and what he said stopped everyone cold. "Calling tower. This is an emergency. We seem to be off course. We cannot see land." The tower responded immediately. Taylor's compass, he reported, was behaving strangely, spinning, giving false readings. His backup compass was also malfunctioning. He believed he was somewhere over the Florida Keys, far south of where he should have been. The tower told him to fly north. Taylor wasn't sure which way north was. What followed over the next 2 hours was a slow, agonizing descent into confusion. A conversation intercepted by multiple radio stations, pieced together in real time by increasingly alarmed military personnel on the ground. Taylor radioed another pilot, Marine Captain Edward Powers, to take over navigation. But Powers had been following Taylor. If Taylor was lost, they all were. Voices on the radio grew tense. Fuel was burning. Daylight was fading. And somewhere over the Atlantic Ocean, 5 planes full of young American men were flying in circles, desperately trying to find the coast of Florida. At one point, Taylor made a critical decision. He turned his flight east, out over the open ocean, believing he was heading back toward mainland Florida. He was not. To this day, investigators believe that Taylor had confused the Bahamas for the Florida Keys and was flying in exactly the wrong direction, away from land, out toward open sea. The radio signals grew weaker. The last transmission from Flight 19 came at approximately 7:04 p.m. Then silence. It was fully dark now. The ocean below was rough, with swells reported at over 15 feet. 5 planes, running on fumes in the dead of night over stormy, open water. The math was merciless. Within 30 minutes of the last transmission, a massive PBM Mariner rescue flying boat, a 13-man crew, one of the Navy's best search and rescue aircraft, took off from Naval Air Station Banana River. Their mission? Find Flight 19. 23 minutes after takeoff, the Mariner vanished from radar. It was never heard from again. A cargo ship in the area reported a large explosion in the sky, a brief, terrible flash of light above the ocean. The Mariner was gone. 13 more men. Gone. What followed was the largest peacetime search operation in U.S. naval history up to that point. Over 300 aircraft, multiple ships, Coast Guard vessels combing thousands of square miles of ocean. They searched for 5 days. They found nothing. No wreckage, no life rafts, no bodies. Not a single piece of debris definitively linked to Flight 19 was ever recovered. The official Navy report was devastating in its candor. It concluded that the disappearance was due to causes unknown. Taylor's mother fought the Navy for years, arguing that her son had been failed by faulty equipment, by an impossible situation, by compasses that gave him nothing solid to hold on to. She wasn't entirely wrong. The Navy eventually amended its report, removing language that implied Taylor was at fault. But the amendment changed nothing about the outcome. 1945 became 1946. The years turned, and then, in the early 1960s, something unexpected happened. A writer named Vincent Gaddis published an article in a pulp magazine. He connected the disappearance of Flight 19 to other strange incidents in a rough triangular zone of ocean between Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico. He called it the Bermuda Triangle. A decade later, Charles Berlitz turned that idea into a best-selling book, and Flight 19 became the centerpiece of one of the most famous and most mythologized mysteries in American history. Alien abductions, time portals, magnetic anomalies powerful enough to drag planes from the sky. The theories multiplied faster than the facts could contain them. For a generation of Americans, Flight 19 wasn't just a tragedy. It was proof that something impossible lurked beneath the surface of that particular stretch of ocean. The truth, as it usually does, resisted such easy answers. The Bermuda Triangle, as a zone of statistically unusual disappearances, has been repeatedly debunked by researchers and insurance data alike. Lloyd's of London doesn't charge higher premiums for ships crossing it. The U.S. Coast Guard doesn't recognize it as a danger zone. Disappearances in that region, when studied carefully, occur at rates consistent with other heavily traveled stretches of ocean around the world. The myth, it turns out, was built largely on selective reporting, on counting the losses and ignoring the millions of safe passages made in those same waters every single year. But here is what remains after you strip away the mythology. On December 5, 1945, 14 men climbed into 5 airplanes over Fort Lauderdale, Florida. They encountered bad compasses, fading light, rising seas, and the worst kind of bad luck, the kind where every small error compounds the one before it. They became disoriented. They ran out of fuel over open ocean at night. They went into the water. And then a rescue plane, sent to find them, exploded in the sky. 27 men, gone in a single evening. Some of their families never fully accepted the Navy's explanations. Some spent decades lobbying for answers, for recognition, for something more than causes unknown, etched on official paper. In 1991, a commercial salvage company operating off the Florida coast discovered 5 Avenger bombers on the ocean floor. For a moment, just a brief, electric moment, it seemed like Flight 19 had finally been found. It hadn't. Serial number checks showed the planes were from different flights, different years. They were Avengers, yes, but not those Avengers, not those men. The ocean had simply been a graveyard for more than one story. There are still people who wonder what Charles Taylor was thinking in those final hours, whether he knew, somewhere in his gut, that he'd made the wrong turn, whether the men behind him trusted him enough to follow without question, right up until the end. The radio transcripts that survive suggest something more complicated than simple error. There's doubt in those voices. There's fear. There's the particular human tragedy of capable people doing everything right and still, somehow, running out of road. Flight 19 was not swallowed by some supernatural force. It was taken by something far more familiar: the fragility of instruments, the limits of human certainty, the indifference of the sea. And in a way, that makes it more haunting, not less. Because those 14 men didn't disappear into a mystery. They disappeared into a December night, disoriented and low on fuel, doing the best they could with what they had. They were somebody's sons, somebody's brothers, somebody's reason to watch the sky every time a plane flew over. We built a legend around their disappearance. We gave it a name, drew a triangle on a map, and turned their deaths into entertainment. But beneath all of that, beneath the books and the documentaries and the breathless speculation, there are simply 27 men who flew into the dark and never came home. And the ocean has never told us anything more than that.